lecture regarding a series of approaches to study political science. Today we are going to discuss behavioral approach. Without wasting our time, let's start behavioral approach. In its introduction, we will discuss what that it is a modern approach. I have written the word modern technology. With the use of modern technology, like electronics, like computer, as well as the techniques and the methods of the statics have provided a new approach to the study of politics. It was first used in America, uh, and Rollo Handy used it after Second World War in 1949. He has used the word behavioral science. So this is the origin right after Second World War. Now, it is what? It is a quantitative measurement. A behavioral approach, it lays emphasis on quantitative measurement of the behavior or activities of the individual in political life and relations. And it is a fresh insight. Yeah, that's the modern one, the new one. And it is what? It is the behavior of activities. It discusses the behavior or activities of the individuals in their political lives and their relations. So it is what? It is micro political. It studies mostly the micro political behavior of the individual. I'm repeating this, that it studies mostly the micro political behavior of the individuals in political systems. And uh, and it is the collection of original collection of original data, direct behavior of individual. So original data collection and direct behavior of the individual it studies. And also it neglect the macro level study of the state. So neglects macro political aspects like states. So it is a minute one and micro like on behavior of the individual in the political system. So all this is introduction, and you can include in the coming slide. I have incorporated some more bullets for this introduction, so you will see. And advantages also you can write those bullets, but for the sake of question purposes here, it has certain advantages, like it's based on scientific analysis and comparison. As I have told you, it is need not to go into detail. It is universal in scope. Almost all the nations, all the states now after Second World War, they have adopted it, and all the theorists are on the view that it is a relevance and a practical one. So it is universal one, and it studies political science as a dynamic subject, not static. I have written the word dynamic, means this is a living one, and not static, that study for the sake of study. No, practical one. Source of further progress, means on the basis of it some other things can be bring on the surface and progress in the society. So operational terms, not theoretical. So it is practical. I have told you, I have discussed that it has operational terms, not in a static one or a theoretical sense. And reality without rituals, reality without rituals, etc. It comes with reality and discards all those rituals, etc., in the society, and move from idealism to scientific. Before it, there was the theorists, they were talking about the idealists one, and with the surfacing of behavioral approach in political science, so they are talking about in a scientific way, in a real way, a reality, empirical understanding of the problems, not in a theoretical sense. So these are the advantages. And to so the purpose is still to unearth human behavior, that how the peoples are thinking, and behind the state there is a human mind which works for the vital areas in the international arena. So, and then the last, development of certain methodologies. It also developed certain methodologies to improve the human knowledge. So these were the advantages. And now coming toward the methods used in behavioral research, what those methods normally applied or used in behavioral research. These are experiments under laboratory conditions. Like science, political science is a science, and like other sciences, they do some experiments under lab conditions, uh, and also experiments under natural environments also studied. And so these have their explanations, and these have their details, but need not to discuss these things in detail here, that the subject not demands here the detail of all these related the things, like that we need to highlight the experiments under these and those. So we need to just point out all these experiments under natural environment. The sample survey methodology is used, and simply the case study method is used in behavioral research, in behavioral approach. The case study, as you know already, and direct observation means are indirect observations, the basics of the science. And these are the methods which use in behavioral research or behavioral study. So some we cannot ignore the criticism or the on the behavioral research or the behavioral approach, that it has certain criticism, like it is value free. So value free judgment is impossible. We cannot judge a human as we know, according to behavioral scientists, as according to the behavioralist, the hallmark of scientific inquiry is to keep our conclusions regarding social realities free from value judgment. So we can say that, in other words, the purpose is to maximize objectively and reduce subjectivity to a reducible minimum. So maximize the objectivity and reduce the subjectivity. So this is the major drawback, that we cannot reduce or minimize the subjectivity. At least there is a corner that we used it. So the validity of the object has been the question by many critics, like Polanyi and many Michael Polanyi and many others. They have discussed the limits of this important area, that from the research purpose we recognize it, but from rigorous examinations of facts and deep reflections of the consequences, it becomes difficult to draw out certain objectively the findings. So the second one is problems in developing society. You know that all the states are not equal, one are not same one, they differ from each other. So with the present insistence on the value neutrality, the behavioral scientists have very remote chances of success in traditional societies, so where values and beliefs tend to be very rigid. So you know that the developing societies are rigid in their belief systems. So even a cursory glance over the record of planning for change in these countries can show that the plans of projects based on meticulously researched empirical data have been founded on the rock of popular resistance. Uh, so, for instance, in spite of the sunlight hazards of population explosion, people in the traditional society are very reluctant to adopt family planning. Suppose I am giving an example. So these plans are so this and unless there is a substantial change in the values and beliefs of the people regarding life and death, even the most scientific plans are family planning would be failed one. So this is an example that it has certain criticism in this important specific area. There are certain other examples you may quote with you while when you can study deep it in. I will provide you some important information in my comment section. So next one is mathematization of knowledge. So what it is? You know that searching for exactness in social science research, a behavioral scientist find that mathematics alone is the touchstone of precision, mathematization of knowledge. So the more mathematics he uses, the better his chances would be getting closer to the natural sciences. So mathematics he thinks is the excel of all natural sciences, and in order to stand side by side with the natural scientist, he must be able to describe social realities in mathematical terms. So such an objective, however, is a gross, oversimplification of reality, and you know that all human activities, in order to be meaningful and need to be described, interpreted, and explained. So this means that we should not subscribe to Disraeli's famous quip that statistics are the art of lying with precision, but at the same time, it is also untrue that nothing in life can be accomplished unless knowledge is translated into immutable numbers. So it has certain the drawbacks like this. So next point is that mechanization of knowledge. In behavioral study, we mechanize the knowledge. So love for mathematics let the behavioralist to search for complex machines. So this is our love for mathematics, that our inclinations towards the machines which can efficiently handle the numerous amount of data that he collects with his computer data collecting devices. Suppose I'm giving an example of votes that we measure them, we count them by the help of certain machines and collect the data, and simply in our any phenomena you have and you collect the data. So the result is that in recent years the behavioralist has gone to the extent of saying that the forthcoming revolution is likely to have two facets, so that we shall come to treat information processing machines in the same way that we treat people, and we shall treat people in the same way that we treat machines. So peoples and machines, so these have been taken as we can say that a machinist scholar, using the word machinist scholar, and a professional one. So at last we are studying the humans, so it is cruel and dispel the state of despondency which has blanketed the social science today. It is to avoid extremism and irrational stubborns from human thinking. So this is mechanization of knowledge. Next is next is use and abuse of language. So normally we use and abuse the language. Linguists or terminological confusion is also listed among the major failures of behavioralisms. Its critics have abundant evidence. I'm going to repeat the previous sentence, that linguists are terminological confusions is also listed among the major failures of behavioralism. Its critics have abundant evidence that behavioral scientists have deep-seated tendency to kind uncommon phraseology, and very often they use obscure terms, jargons, like we can say, from the natural sciences to explain a very ordinary point of view. So in some cases there could perhaps be genuine apprehension that the purpose of the research workers was not to produce a creative idea, but simply to introduce an abstruse terms, and the result is that pseudo scientific phrase mongering has become one of the biggest charges against the behavioral approach. So the obscurity of the terms has widened the gulf of estrangement among social scientists. So it is not that due to problems of terminology, only the behavioralist and non-behavioralist cannot communicate with each other. Even the behavioral scholars are experiencing the growing difficulty of understanding what is being said to be various areas of behavioral research. So this is terminological hazards, and it multiplied because each discipline has been divided into numerous specialties, and it is the utmost intention of the specialist in each speciality to carve out and to carve out an identity for themselves, and an easiest way they can do so, and to coin the technological terms and specific meaning. So this creates a barrier among scholars in the academic discipline. Understand this? And next, complex nature of human behavior. We know that human one is not a machine, and it has a variety of a diversification at a time, and think differently on different times. So we cannot predict exactly what he means at that particular time. So this was the criticism against it. And let's discuss some of the objectives of a behavioral approach in last. This is I have a separate lecture on the on this David Easton behavioral approach, but here I'm going to highlight some of the objectives being pointed out by David Easton in studying behavioral approach. That is what its regularities. While while studying these points, keep in view that it is scientific one. Regularities always adopted in science. Regular one means a regular occurring of the events. Scientific examination of uniformities, out of which predictive generalization and theories can be extracted. Next is verification. We verify our data, we verify our theory. Validity of theories should be established by some very relevance to actual behavior. Verification. Next is techniques. Normally, like science, the student of science, they use some techniques. Similarly, in behavioral sciences, we use some techniques like skills by which behavior can be observed. We are observing, but all the study rests on the behavior. So we have some skills or techniques to observe a behavior, record it, analyze it, but in a rigorous manner. So understand this technique. And next is quantification. Like the scientist, like the other pure science students, we quantify our data. Data concerning behavior must be translated into numbers so that the results can be measured accurately. And next come empirical explanation. Like other sciences, it should be value free. There should be no personal biasness or subjectivity, as I have discussed this point in while I was criticizing this as a field of study in political science, that we cannot ignore it, but here it must be value free. And then inquiry should be organized in a manner that research and the theory can be used simultaneously to acquire gainful results. So pure science, it must be deal as a pure science, that the explanation, that its application or application of the knowledge is as much as a part of scientific enterprises as the theoretical understanding. And then the last one is integration. The word must be corrected here, and not interaction, but it is integration. So integration means to join, to integrate one finding with the findings of the other behavioral disciplines, are the scientists. So these are the objectives highlighted by David Easton. Thank you very much. If you have question, so you may give me in my comments box.